Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Mayakoba DFS Tactics show. Got a lot to get into. We've got several lineups to make. See if we can't find the optimal 6 players to make a lot of money this weekend. Figure out who are top pivots, who are top fades, all of that good stuff, including one player in the 6Ks that I think is pretty darn close to an auto include, especially if you're playing some stars and scrubs lineups, so you want to stick around to the end of the show for that. But we've got a lot to get into. Let's cover my mixed condition model, rankings, my general thoughts, and so on. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there at your disposal. It is going to make you a much better gambler and a much smarter DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. Twitter and Instagram. I posted some research earlier in the week surrounding the pattern or a pattern of winners or statistics and metrics that the winners have performed well leading into the Mayakoba. So if you want to see that research in summary, give me a follow at the links to Twitter and Instagram. Also on Twitter, I will be posting my betting card after the show this evening, as I do every Wednesday night for the tournament at hand. So if you want to see that, give me a follow at Twitter. There is a link to Twitch in the description as well. This is where I do a lot of my Korn Ferry Tour research, a lot of in-depth stuff. I critique my previous week's mixed condition model, do a whole lot of stuff there, including showdown content. So if you want to be a part of the showdown content, I will be live tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern to cover the PM portion of the showdown slate. But Twitch, I am live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm doing a lot of research, play some games, do a lot of different stuff. So give me a follow at Twitch if you are interested in any of that content. And then there is also a link to my Discord server if you prefer to get a hold of me in that way. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. I want to hear from you all. Who are your top pivots and fades? Do you think there are any 6K plays worthy of a lot of consideration, especially one like I'm considering? Do you think stars and scrubs is the way to go this week? Balance, a good mix. What kind of players do you think are going to perform well or not well at El Camaleon this week? So let's get all into it. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Mayakoba. And as promised from Monday evening, we start over at Windfinder. And it appears to be somewhat similar to the Bermuda, at least in terms of Thursday and Friday. Now, Thursday at the Bermuda was very, very calm. This is more looking like a Friday and Saturday type deal at the Bermuda. The wind is picking up a little bit. Now, there is rain in the forecast tomorrow, late morning and early afternoon. And then a heavier bout of rain overnight on Friday. But I've just brought up the super forecast so we can go hour by hour. And as you can see, it's pretty darn consistent. The wind direction is the same for both days. Anywhere between 10 to 14 miles an hour in terms of sustained gusts in the 14 to maybe 16, 17, 18. I don't think it's going to be windy, but I certainly think it'll be moderate wind this week at El Camaleon. So with that, hey P, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in chat like you always do. Just caught you there. So thanks for jumping in chat and joining earlier today on Twitch. And I meant to say that in the intro. Thanks to everybody who has been joining on Twitch in the mornings. steadily growing. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. But we'll move to Fantasy National, and these are the players that you need to give a bump to or consider more heavily, as they have played well in windy conditions in 2022. Tony Finau, Chris Kirk, Scotty Scheffler, Aaron Wise, Tom Hoagie, Sebastian Munoz, Matt Kuchar, Brian Harmon, Scott Piercy, and Billy Horschel. Those 10 there have played well in the wind in 2022. You can see a little bit further on down here, Brandon Wu, Grillo, Russell Henley. Give these players a boost in your rankings or in your consideration. And conversely, these players need to be dropped or viewed with more skepticism. Andrew Landry, Harry Higgs, Brian Davis, Jason Duffner, Isidro Benitez, although that is only 2 rounds, so I imagine that is probably the Corrales or Puerto Rico or so, but still. Danny Lee, surprising to see because he has played this event very well, but he has not played well in the wind this year. Max McGreevy, Harris English, Brad Adamonis, Jim Herman, Kevin Tway, and so on. Justin Suh, Ryan Brim, so on and so forth. So give these players a decline, a decrease, view with more skepticism in your rankings tonight as you finalize your lineups for the Mayakoba. So we will move now to the full field mixed condition model that I have made for this week, and then we'll touch the rookies and then look at the full field ranks and start building some lineups. So with this mixed condition model, there were a lot of ways that it could have gone. So it's not to say that I'm not confident in it. I am. But there are certainly ways that this could have been tweaked. And if those minor adjustments turn out to be better, then I'm going to be a little weak to. And you'll see here in a moment what I mean by that. But we talked about Monday night especially, that the par 4s are just going to be extremely important here. Now, yes, the strokes gained par hole that yields the most strokes gained is par 5s, but these par 4s are pretty darn important, especially when we looked historically in the leaderboards and compared to other full field courses. I put 20% in strokes gained par 4. I did not separate out a length. I did not feel comfortable trying to split out the 350 to 400, 450 to 500, anything along that. I just think par 4 performance is going to be extremely important this week. So instead of lowering the total par 4 and splitting out something, I just put a whole lot of percentage into par 4. I have 15% in birdies or better gained, easy to par. And I mentioned Monday night that I would be focusing just on birdies gained. However, this is where I issue a mea culpa. I went and found a resource that lists the amount of eagles and bogeys and whatnot for each tournament throughout the year. And surprisingly to me, the Mayakoba yields as many eagles as the Sanderson Farms. And the Sanderson Farms is generally a pretty darn easy course for pros. So that's why I have indeed put in birdies or better gained. And that would make a little bit of sense too, because scoring here is generally pretty easy with only 3 par 5s. There are a lot of birdies, but that means there are some eagles as well. So I did end up using birdies or better gained, even though I had not intended to Monday night. I went back, looked yesterday, found that resource, and saw that Mayakoba yields a decent enough amount of eagles to where birdies or better gained needs to be considered. And I put easy to par because I'm pretty darn confident this is going to play easy. 75% of the rounds in the last 4 years have played easy here at El Camaleon. We know it's short, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But when you're looking at birdies or bogeys, I like to compare that against the difficulty. So birdies on difficult or birdies on easy versus birdies on short and birdies on long. There's certainly it's certainly prudent to look at it like we did Monday night. But in terms of rankings, I like to use scoring against scoring. Birdies, bogeys, easy, difficult. And I think birdies or better are going to be very, very important. Again, this is an easy course. It's been an easy tournament historically. 15% there. I'm going to come to strokes gained off the tee, easy to par, since I'm talking about easy. We do not have any strokes gained off the tee, approach, putting, any kind of that data. So why am I putting off the tee? Well, I mentioned I probably would Monday night, and I have a very, very strong suspicion that, we talked about good drives gained and fairways. Now, distance is not that big of a factor here at all. So it's mostly in terms of hitting fairways, but I did want to see strokes gained off the tee when it's easy as opposed to just strokes gained off the tee. When you put in easy to par, it changes. Some guys play courses differently. They'll hit driver off the tee box if if it's easy or whatnot. So I definitely wanted to put strokes gained off the tee, easy to par in my mixed condition model. I put it at 10%. Again, that's probably a little strong. Could be 5%. But I think this is going to be an off the tee type course this week. So 10% there. We'll come back up to the par 5s. I was mentioning how important the par 4s are. We saw throughout the week par 5s of this length, 550 to 600, are just extremely important. It is the most strokes gained by hole by par here at El Camaleon. So 15% in the par 5s of this length alone. No other par 5s. There's only one other par 5 on the course. It's 500 to 550, and it doesn't play a big factor. So a lot of weight in the par 5s that measure to this length. 10% in strokes gained approach. Again, similar to off the tee, we don't have that data, but you're going to have to hit your irons well here. These greens are massive. That's why I've also included proximity as well. You're just going to have to hit your irons well. Victor Hovland has had good iron form coming in to this tournament the past 2 years. I'm going to go to procs similar to strokes gained approach. These greens are massive. They're big. So we looked throughout the week whether we could find, maybe a 200 plus proximity was it. Maybe 150 to 175 or 125 to 150 when we went through Pro Visualizer. I was not confident breaking out any of the proximities similar to the par 4s. So I just put total procs and upped its percentage a little bit to 10%. So there's the reasoning behind that. Now I want to talk about good drives gained and fairways gained with the less than 7,200 filter. We talked about how this course has generally been easy. It hasn't been easy every single round, but we know for a fact that it's going to be short. So I wanted to see who hits fairways, who hits greens, and generally who does well off the tee, or phrased another way, who ball strikes it well when it's short. So I've got both filters or both specifics covered, especially off the tee. I've got strokes gained off the tee alone, easy, and I have ball striking, essentially. Ball striking when it's short. So I've covered both of the factors of El Camaleon in that regard. And again, I just think good drives gained is going to be the more important statistic this week of fairways, good drives, and greens. And I am very confident that distance doesn't matter, so I've put the most weight into good drives gained. But similarly, I think fairways are going to be important. So I did want to see who finds fairways when it's short. Put that at 5%, and then I rounded out the mixed condition model 5% in par threes. There are 4 of them. They're, even though they are not very important, they're still going to get played. They still contribute to the winner. Brendan Todd was the leader in strokes gained par 3 the year he won in 2020. So you're still going to have to look at them. That some of them are scoreable. You do have a couple of shorter ones, but they overall have not been an extremely important part of the tournament. So there's the mixed condition model for the full field. A couple of things that I will be that I neglected or should mention. For example, if strokes gained off the tee and birdies are better, if it is more important to look at them when it's a short course, or good drives gained in fairways when it's easy. Those 4 kind of metrics are definitely interchangeable. This is just my preference, especially on this category when you go scoring against scoring. Birdies, bogeys, difficult, easy. But, it could easily be argued to look at birdies when it's short, good drives gained when it's easy. So if any of those are convoluted or play to the other metric, I could be a little cold to them. I don't have any short game in here. Don't have any strokes gained around the green, any scrambling, anything like that. I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be a big factor, but if it is this year, I'm going to be cold to that. I also don't have any putting or paspalum data. We talked about it Monday. There's not a lot of data. Yesterday on Twitch, I really debated whether I wanted to put 5% in strokes gained total paspalum on here. Generally speaking, the players that have played those events well, the Caribbean events, the Bermuda, the Corrales, Puerto Rico, they all generally play all of the events well. And when I looked at my mixed condition model more thoroughly yesterday, when I sorted on strokes gained total paspalum, it lined up extremely well with the finish from last year's Mayakoba. However, I decided not to because the Corrales and the Puerto Rico are both long courses. So really the only good comparison course for Mayakoba or El Camaleon would have been the Bermuda. So that's why I didn't put anything in terms of paspalum, but it is very probable that some strokes gained total paspalum should be used, because generally the players play those events all very well. If you're playing the Puerto Rico well, you're playing Corrales well, you're playing Mayakoba well, etc., etc. There is my full field mixed condition model. Let's move on over to Microsoft Excel, and I'm first going to talk about the rookie rankings. And thankfully, Augusto Nunez is not number 1, although he did make the cut last week. I was pretty gun shy on Augusto Nunez, but someone who should be familiar has risen back to number 1. It's Paul Haley. I like Paul Haley this week. On the Korn Ferry Tour, he dominated the par 4s. Now, before I get into let's go over the mixed condition model for the Korn Ferry Tour. So I've got 20% in par 4s. I have 15% in good drives gained easy to par. And the reason why I've had to use easy instead of short, the Korn Ferry Tour only had one tournament that measured short. We talked about it last week at the Bermuda. So I could not use any short course metrics. I just decided to go to easy because the Mayakoba has played easy majority of the time. So 15% in good drives gained when it's easy, 15% at the lengths of the par 5s, 10% in strokes gained easy to par, so who plays easy courses well, who goes low on easy courses. And then I did not put a filter on the fairways because I have good drives gained easy, and this is a combination of greens and fairways. I just wanted to see who generally hit fairways. So of this number, or of this performance, How much of it is based on fairways versus hitting greens? So that's why I didn't put any filter there. And then I rounded it out 10% in strokes gained par 3. And I did end up splitting out the 2 lengths of par 4s that I thought were going to be the most important, but I only put 5% in them because I'm not all that confident in it. So there's the mixed condition model for the rookies or the Korn Ferry Tour grads. Now, I talked about Paul Haley a little bit, but he's number 1 in my Korn Ferry Tour rankings. Like him a lot. He plays easy. He played easy courses well. Hits a lot of fairways, which is what's going to be needed this week at El Camaleon. Played the length of the par 4s at El Camaleon fairly well throughout the Korn Ferry Tour season. There's a lot to like here with Paul Haley. Taylor Montgomery, what's there to say? Doesn't hit a lot of fairways, so that could be an issue here. But I still think he's just good enough to play. I mentioned at the Zozo that was the toughest field he's going to see, and he top 15. Taylor Montgomery's the real deal. I am looking forward to having a lot of Taylor Montgomery in season-long fantasy leagues. Austin Eckroat, fine. He hasn't performed up to his metrics. Neither has Justin Suh, but the numbers say they should be good. I want to bring your attention, last week I mentioned Harry Hall, and he was a little bit further down in my rankings. I want to bring your attention to Kevin Yu. I'm going to highlight Kevin Yu this week for a couple of different reasons. Look at his performance when it's easy. He goes very low when it's easy. Generally plays pretty well when it's easy. He hits fairways. And his performance, when we go over to the full field, you'll see that his performance on par 4s has actually been pretty good lately. It doesn't look very good compared to the Korn Ferry Tour players, but maybe he's turned a corner. Maybe he has picked up a skill, something. He's played par 4s well, and his off the tee game is pretty darn good. So take a look at Kevin Yu this week in terms of Korn Ferry Tour grads. I'm highest on Paul Haley, Taylor Montgomery. He's going to be very popular, but I'm very high on Taylor Montgomery. Like Paul Haley, and I like Kevin Yu, but there's not a lot I like this week in terms of Korn Ferry Tour grads. There really isn't. I'll talk about Ben Griffin in the full ranks, but there's a look at my Korn Ferry Tour rankings. I realized I didn't go through the top 10. So my top 10 Korn Ferry Tour rankings: Paul Haley II, Austin Eckroat, Justin Suh, Taylor Montgomery, Marty Doe, Augusto Nunez, Ben Griffin, Michael Kim, S.H. Kim, and Robbie Shelton. That's 9. Oh, and 10th will be 10th is Robbie Shelton. So again, there's not a lot that I like here. I'll be using a little bit of Paul Haley. Taylor Montgomery is going to be very popular. I'm going to use him. He has nothing left to prove in my book. He's played extremely well in all of his different tests, in his different facets: short course, easy, traveling, long course. He's played well. But take a look at Kevin Yu. I like Kevin Yu quite a bit. Now, let's go on over to the full field rankings. And before I forget, I will just go ahead and spill out my top 10. So, factoring everything in between Fantasy National Analytics, previous course performance, and projected ownership per Fantasy National, my rankings this week go as such. Tony Finau is number 1, Tom Hoge number 2, Aaron Wise, Grayson Sigg, Russell Henley, Scotty Scheffler, Billy Horschel, Maverick McNeely, Kevin Streelman, and K.H. Lee. There is a notable omission. I would think that Victor Hovland needs to be in the top 10, but we'll talk about him when we get to the 10Ks. Overall, though, Tony Finau, I mean, what's there to say here? You see the 5 statistics that I've put the most weight in. He is top 10 in all of them. Really, his only very poor stat is fairways when it's short. So, I mean, if that ends up being an issue, it could be a problem. Or if he doesn't find his fairways this week. But, I mean, top 10 in approach, number 1 in par 4 scoring, number 2 in birdies or better when it's easy. This just sets up very well for Tony Finau. I like Tom Hoge a lot as well. He is number 1 in strokes gained approach. He is very good at proximity, which is a little bit off the screen here. He's 3rd in total procs. Also top 10 in par 4 and birdies or better when it's easy, just like Tony Finau. So a lot to like with Tom Hoge. Aaron Wise always rates out well in my model, but he doesn't have a poor statistic. I'll scroll all the way over for you. So you got some good statistics, elite. I mean, he is number 1 in the par 5 lengths here at El Camaleon, but he doesn't have any bad statistics, no pink or red. So he's just been playing well, and he has played this event well in the past. Grayson Sigg, coming off a very, very solid Bermuda, sets up well again for him. I don't think he is 4th, but I think he is going to be quite useful in DFS again this week. Top 11th, almost top 10 in the length of the par 5s, which are the most important thing here. He has played the par 4s pretty darn well. He's gone low when it's been easy. There's a lot to like here. I am a little worried with his off the tee game, but he's got a lot going for him. Henley, all of his is being made up in the fact that he hits tons of fairways. He's number 1 in good drives gained. He's number 6 in total procs, 15th in just fairways. He's a fairway finder, which is what you need at El Camaleon. Anytime putting is not included, Russell Henley will generally rise. He's okay off the tee, again, just because of the fairways. Like, he's not the shortest hitter. He's not long. He's not the shortest hitter. He will definitely need to take advantage of these par 5s. But iron play, he's just a ball striker. But he's not played this course well. So there's a little bit of pause there with Russell Henley. Scotty Scheffler has played this event twice, averaged a top 10 basically. Got lots to like there. Billy Horschel, the number 1 strokes gained total player in the past 5 years, loves this course. I like Maverick McNeely a lot again this week. However, his irons and his proximity need to be better. Kevin Streelman, to me, is a bit of an outlier here. I don't think he's 9th. He is getting propped up with the fact that he has been really darn good off the tee when it's easy. His irons have been good, take nothing away from that, but he's also number 1 in proximity. He generally plays better when it's difficult, not when it's easy. He does his best work when it's difficult, even though his off the tee when it's easy has been good. But you see, birdies are better when it's easy. Pretty darn close to last. I'm quite worrisome about Kevin Streelman, even though he is 9th overall in my rankings. He's getting helped by the fact that he's not very widely owned. He's played this event fairly well. He is 17th via Fantasy National, but I have a very big issue here with this for Kevin Streelman. So quite gun shy on Kevin Streelman. I would not put him 9th. Like I said, I would bring Victor Hovland up here. And then to round it out, KH Lee, a lot going for him as well. Top 15 in both the length of the par 5s and off the tee when it's easy. 14th in procs, which is just off the screen here. A lot to like with KH Lee as well. So let me sort this on price, and we'll go through the price board here. Sort on column D. That wasn't it. Good job, stupid. Largest, smallest. There we go. Okay. In the 10Ks, we have 6 players. Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Aaron Wise, and Billy Horschel. And you can see from their rankings, like, I like all 6 of them. I like all 6. I've talked about how Victor Hovland, I think, what needs to be in the top 10. He just didn't rate out well when I gathered everything, and a lot of that being because of the Fantasy National rank. He hasn't played a lot. We talked about this leading into the Zozo. He hadn't played a lot, didn't know where his game was. He's not the best at going low when it's easy, but 6th in par 4s. He's 10th off the tee when it's easy. If there's anything you need to have here at El Camaleon, it's off the tee. His irons still hadn't been good, but remember, he performed well at the Zozo. We don't get strokes gained approach there. So this number, even though he played well at the Zozo, is still not reflective of that because we don't get that number. So it's still being held back. I think Victor Hovland's going to be a lot better than 26. There's a reason he's at 15.5%. There's a reason he's the 2-time defending champ. If you ignore Victor Hovland, I think you're doing it wrong. I'm not saying that you have to use him, but if you ignore him, you're doing it wrong. You absolutely need to consider using Victor Hovland. The other player in the 10Ks we haven't really talked about is Colin Morikawa, and I like Colin Morikawa a lot this week. He's getting hurt by the fact that he's never played this course. So that number is artificially high. I have to put a value in there if they haven't played just to make the mathematical formula work. So that number is fairly high. He's getting hurt. But number 10 off the tee when it's easy, just like Victor Hovland. He's been much better with his irons. And a lot of that off the tee number is coming from the fact that he hits fairways. He doesn't need distance to succeed. It's Colin Morikawa. He's number 2 in proximity. If the par 3s do end up mattering a little bit more this year, he's top 15 in those. I like Colin Morikawa a lot. The issue is a lot of fantasy, at least members at Fantasy National do too. Tony Finau, number 1 player. I'm going to eat that chalk whenever I strike the fancy to get a Finau lineup together. I mean, if you are in the 10Ks, you are not unique at all. Everybody is at least 14% owned. Aaron Wise is generally higher than what Fantasy National predicts anyway. So you're not going to be unique coming into the 10Ks. So if you're making a 10K lineup, or if you're making a lineup using a 10K, then moving down to the 9 and then an 8, trying to build a balanced lineup that way, you're setting yourself up for a 5v5. At the same time, it looks like Stars and Scrubs could be fairly popular as well, especially since there are a few players in the 6Ks that are getting some love, and we'll talk about them here after a little while, especially Kevin Yu. But Stars and Scrubs looks to be the approach that a lot of the analysts or statistical-minded people at Fantasy National, your fellow contestants, are going. So with that, I mean, in the 10Ks, yes, he's the most projected owned, but he is number 1 in my rankings. I firmly believe it. I'm going to go Tony Finau, number 1 in the 10Ks. All things considered, price and performance and ownership, I'm going to go Aaron Wise, number 2, because he is 1,000 less than Victor Hovland, and that's a lot of money you can redistribute elsewhere among your team. So I'm going to go Tony Finau first, Aaron Wise second, Victor Hovland third. I really like Colin Morikawa. I'm going to go with him 4th. Billy Horschel 5th and Scotty Scheffler 6th. And I like Scotty Scheffler. It's just the fact that somebody has to be 6th out of these 6. A lot of it is because he's the most expensive. He's pretty widely owned for being as expensive as he is. And he has not played Scotty Scheffler-like lately. So there's my rankings in the 10Ks. Let's move to the 9s. You've got Taylor Montgomery, Tom Hoagie, Maverick McNeely, Seamus Power, Jason Day, Emiliano Grillo, and Brendan Todd. Again, I said it last week, like I was low on Seamus Power, but there are reasons to like him. He popped on all of the wind filters. He popped on all of the short course filters. I will never pick a player to win tournaments back-to-back. I don't care. I just won't do it. It's hard enough to win on the PGA Tour. To win back-to-back weeks it takes something special. I'm never going to pick him to be, or never going to pick a player to go back-to-back. However, 3rd at birdies are better when it's easy. His off the tee has been really, really good. But look at his iron play. And again, this is not factoring in the Bermuda, so he played a lot better than this at the Bermuda. But his irons still haven't been good, even if you consider the Bermuda. The length of the par 5s, very worrisome. The par 4s he hasn't played well, or at least before the Bermuda. And this is factoring in the Bermuda. So there's enough reason to be wary of Seamus Power, and he has not played this event well. But if you want to go ride the hot hand, there's enough to go with on Seamus Power. I'm just out. Elsewhere here in the 9Ks, I love Tom Hoge, number 2 in my rankings. The tied with Tony Finau to be the most projected on player. We talked about him in the reveal of the top 10. I love Maverick McNeely, seeing him at sub 10%. Top 5 in power 4 scoring, top 10 in off the tee when it's easy. He goes low when it's easy. I like Maverick McNeely quite a bit this week, and seeing him under 10%, I'm excited. Emiliano Grillo just missed the top 10. He's also getting hurt by the Colin Morikawa factor that he just hasn't played this course, so that's a high number there. He's also getting hurt that he is the most projected owned player. I misspoke. I said Hoge and Finau were tied for the most. I misspoke. Emiliano Grillo is the most projected owned at 18.3%, and then Hoge and Finau at 17.3%. But if you take Grillo, it's a good play. It's an obvious play. I mean, he's got no statistic worse than 50th. So there's the first 5. His worst there is 26th. Then you come over his last 4 statistics. His highest is a 50. He does not have a bad statistic. He's rated 3rd per Fantasy National for a reason. You're setting yourself up automatically for a 5v5 doing it. So that is on you if you're willing to eat that chalk. I am more wanting to eat the Tony Finau chalk because I like other players in the 9Ks than Emiliano Grillo and in the upper 8s. So I don't have to eat this chalk now. I'm going to use a little bit of Emiliano Grillo. It's not that I'm full fading him. I'll use him, but I'm going to limit it just because of how insanely high his ownership is going to be. But it is a good play. It is a smart play. He should play well. Brendan Todd, all of this is based on prior course performance, especially since we don't have any putting data. That's when he generally rises, is when you factor in putting. Off the tee is very worrisome, but he's a fairway finder. So as long as he hits his fairways, he'll be okay. Elsewhere in the 9s, Jason Day, kind of interesting. Number 2 in strokes gained approach since July 1st. Hard to believe, but number 2 in strokes gained approach since July 1st. Top 10 in the par 5s. Like, take a look at Jason Day. Now, he has not played this event very well at all, as you can see here. But he is 14th per Fantasy National. So, do you want to believe the analytics or do you want to believe the prior course performance? I think Jason Day is worth taking a shot on if he fits into a lineup, but I wouldn't stretch to fit him in. For example, McNeely is 0.8% more important, 0.8% more popular than Jason Day, and I like Maverick McNeely a whole lot more than Jason Day. And then there's Taylor Montgomery, still sub 10%. I think he's going to be much more popular than that. I just do. And I'm going to fire up some Taylor Montgomery. So there's a look in the 9Ks. Let's move to the 8s. We have Brian Harmon, Thomas Dietrich, K.H. Lee, Alex Noren, Russell Henley, Keith Mitchell, Adam Hadwin, Andrew Putnam, and Matt Kuchar. In here, I want to highlight a couple of players. We talked about Russell Henley. All of his is being done in finding fairways, ball striking, approach, and whatnot. I think it's a fine play, but he has not played this event well, so be a little bit cautious. We talked about K.H. Lee. I'm going to highlight Thomas Dietrich for a bad reason. He is coming off that solo second at the Bermuda, and he played extremely well. But what people probably don't realize is that it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. He scrambled his way through that tournament. He was one of the lowest fairway hitting players last week, and that's not going to work here at El Camaleon. We don't have his putting statistics, but from, again, eyeball test, it didn't look all that great. Dietrich is a fade for me, and a pretty big fade for me because of the form from last week. Yes, the par 5 scoring, very strong. But he hasn't really gone super low when it's easy. His off the tee when it's been easy hasn't been the best. And again, speaking to last week, he really struggled finding fairways. Like I said, he scrambled his way through that tournament. I think he led the field in scrambling last week. Or he was in the top 3. I mean, it was something astronomical what he did in terms of scrambling. I'm off on Thomas Dietrich this week. I just am. So this is kind of like my Sam Ryder from last week, my Chad Ramey. I am advising you stay away from Thomas Dietrich this week. Instead of Thomas Dietrich, take a look at KH Lee. Brian Harman should be okay, especially since it's a ball striking and finding a fairway type course. Now, again, kind of like Dietrich, he has struggled to go low when it's been easy. But I'm just off of Dietrich. I do not like Keith Mitchell at all, even though this is an off the tee type event. And you see Keith Mitchell here is number 1 in terms of off the tee when it's easy. He's not the best at going low when it's easy. He does his best work, like Kevin Streelman, when it's difficult. So I always target Keith Mitchell when it's difficult. I can't say that he struggles. He's not the best when it's easy. The par 5 lengths, irons have been bad. I'm off of Keith Mitchell. Adam Hadwin, similar. He's not the best at going low when it's easy. His off the tee game is just generally pretty bad. He's more of a short game player. This is not a short game course. Instead, I'm going with Andrew Putnam, number 2 in par 4s. He's fine when it's easy, but more so, look at this. He will find the fairway. 4th in good drives gained when it's short. 11th in hitting fairways when it's short. And number 10 in par 3s if the par 3s end up mattering. Now, proximity, pretty bad. We'll have to improve on that. But you see the irons, strokes gained approach, 33rd. So something there is off. That's going to have to normalize in some way, I would think. So I really like Andrew Putnam this week in the 8K. So, yeah. Brian Harman, okay. I like KH Lee. Russell Henley, sure, based on the approach, the proximity, finding the fairways. But I really like Andrew Putnam. There's not a lot I like here in the 8Ks, really. So that tells you kind of the lineups that I've been going. Even if I'm not going dedicated stars and scrubs, I've been generally foregoing the 8Ks except for maybe Andrew Putnam. I'll throw Russell Henley or KH Lee in a lineup every once in a while, but I've been mostly foregoing the 8Ks. Upper 7s, a couple players I want to highlight for you. Patrick Rogers, coming off a pretty darn good tournament last week. I like him. Finding fairways could be an issue, but take a look at Patrick Rogers. I stay away from Davis Riley. I do not like Davis Riley at all. He's not played this event well. Par 4s, he generally struggles. Now, he does play easy courses well, but again, this is more of like a hunch. I'm not there for Davis Riley. I talk about it every time, but Harris English, if you want to believe the health, he's played this event well, but he hasn't performed well lately. Robbie Shelton, Justin Lauer, good. I much prefer Justin Lauer, but he is much more widely owned, clearly. Almost double. About 80% of the ownership. But, really darn close in terms of Fantasy National. Shelton's rated higher just because he's actually played this tournament and he's much lower owned. But you can see very similar, and Lauer's actually number 1 in terms of the length of the par 5s. So I like both of them. I would probably lean Lauer, even though he is much more highly owned. And then at 7,500, again, JT Poston normally plays easy courses well, but he burned me last month or whatever at the Shriners. I think it was the Shriners. Might have been the tournament before that, but generally plays easy courses well. Take a look at JT Poston. Especially at 4.4%, he might be worth throwing in a lineup or two. Well, we move to the low sevens, and again, a couple of more players here. Hayden Buckley, very, very strong. 4th in the analytics. Not a bad statistic except for the par 3s. But let's scroll over here. Like 56 is not great, but you got a 12th, a 4th, 21st, 3rd, 15th, 3rd, and then, like I said, the par 3s at 76. Like, Hayden Buckley has a lot going for him this week, and you can see he's very, very popular. That's probably some chalk I'll eat, along with Tony Finau. I like Hayden Buckley quite a bit. Take a look at JJ Spawn. Very good when it's easy. Off the tee, good. His fairways, he's 20th when courses are short. 21st in good drives gained when it's short. Take a look at JJ Spawn. We talked about Grayson Sigg. Do not sleep on Cam Champ this week. The par 4 is bad, but look at this. Birdies are better when it's easy. Top 20. 3rd in the length of the par 5s, which you have to take advantage of here, and he does. It's number 1 off the tee when it's easy. Now, yes, most of that comes in distance. I understand. This is my hunch for the week. If Cameron Champ plays poorly, I probably won't do well, because this is just my hunch, my gut feeling for the week. I think Cameron Champ's going to be okay. He played the Mexico Open in in May, very, very well at Vedanta. He tied for 6th, and he also put the daylights out that week. Paspalum generally neutralizes good putters. Generally is a more even playing field in terms of putting. So I like Cameron Champ. Let's see. Knox, again, probably should be okay. He did not have a good weekend at Bermuda, but says it should be good. 10th in irons, 2nd in good drives gained when it's short. Top 10 in both total procs and fairways gained when it's short. Probably should be pretty good. We talked about Kevin Streelman. Not all that high on him because of this here. And then at 7K, Party Marty, okay, especially at 3%. Number 5th in good drives gained when it's short, 5th in fairways when it's short. So you can see the kind of players that I'm gravitating towards. You've got to be able to hit these fairways, or at least be good enough with your irons that if you miss a fairway, you can still find the green in regulation. Putting is not that big of a deal, I don't think, this week, so I'm not scared away from putting. But let's move into the 6Ks, and there's 2 or 3 players that I really want to highlight, including the one that I mentioned at the top of the show, the one player that I think is pretty close to an auto use. But in the 6Ks, I mentioned him in the Korn Ferry Tour Grads. Let's talk about Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin for me is a full fade this week. I'm not using Ben Griffin at all. And it has everything to do with his collapse on the back 9. He's very talented. He absolutely has the capability and the talent to go out and compete and possibly win this tournament. I am going to take this week to see how he handles that adversity, from leading his first PGA Tour event, and I don't want to say giving it away, but he really struggled down the stretch, and now he's coming back a week later, which I think is good. He's not giving himself time to mull over it and all that stuff. But I'm going to take this week to see how Ben Griffin handles this. He's very talented. I'm not saying that he's done as a professional golfer. By no means am I saying that. I'm not saying the opposite. I think he's going to be very good. But another reason why I am willing to full fade Ben Griffin is that there's enough players around his price that I really like, that I have confidence that they're going to play well, that I can take the chance to see how Ben Griffin reacts to the adversity. If you use Ben Griffin, it's probably a good play. He'll probably play well. But I am going to take a contrarian approach. I'm going to see how he handles this adversity. So who do I like in the 6Ks? Well, we talked about him in the Korn Ferry Tour grads as well. Kevin Yu. Love Kevin Yu this week. And I talked about how the par 4s didn't look good compared to the Korn Ferry Tour guys. But on the PGA Tour, he has played them very, very well. He's played easy courses very, very well, especially off the tee, which is what you need to do. He is good, or he has been good so far at total procs. He's been good at finding fairways. He's number 4 in par 3s if they matter. There's a lot to like with Kevin Yu. Love Kevin Yu, but he is the most popular 10K play. Just know that coming in. I also like Brandon Wu. This is somebody who has played these past Palom courses well. Corrales, Mexico Open at Vedanta, Puerto Rico. He has played well there. Number 8 in par 4s, close to top 20 in the length of the par 5s. He's good off the tee. He will find fairways. He's 6th in good drives gained when it's short. There's a lot to like here with Brandon Wu at 6,900. Austin Eckroat, fine. But let's talk about the one. Actually, I'm going to skip the one player I think is close to an include. I'm going to come all the way down here to 6,300. Take a look at Ryan Moore. Take a look at Ryan Moore. Again, all of it being in the fact that he finds fairways. His par 4s are fine. He doesn't, go extremely low, but it's, he's not in the hundreds. But again, you see the kind of players I'm gravitating towards. His irons have been good. He finds fairways at 6K, in the 6K, at 6,300, no less. Take a look at Ryan Moore. I think he's going to be very, very serviceable this week. Paul Haley was number 1 in my Korn Ferry Tour rankings. But the one player that I think is pretty darn close to auto-include, even in the 6Ks, is Tyler Duncan. Tyler Duncan has really one terrible statistic. And a lot of this is coming from one tournament where he lost 8 strokes on approach. That's really hard to do. Even when you have a bad week, that's still really hard to do, to lose 8 strokes. He is not that kind of iron player. He's not good. I mean, he's not great. He's not, Colin Morikawa or Aaron Baddeley or Matthias Schmidt or anything like that. But he is not 92nd. You see the off the tee game. He will find fairways. He is top 10 in fairways when it's short. Proximity is fine. Again, speaking to something is going to have to even out here. Fine in the par 5 length. Birdies are better. He goes low enough. At 6,500, Tyler Duncan, he has played this event well. He's 5 for 5, making the cut at the Mayakoba in his career. 5 for 5. That's why he's got one of the lower course values. There's a lot to like with Tyler Duncan. I am firing up a whole lot of Tyler Duncan. If he plays poorly, I will lose. If Cameron Champ plays poorly, I will not be in a good spot because I'm using much more Tyler Duncan. If Ben Griffin plays well, I'm going to struggle because he's a full fade. If Seamus Power plays well, I'm going to struggle. These kinds of players. But take a long look at Tyler Duncan. I love Tyler Duncan this week. So there's a look at the price board. I've been rambling on quite a bit. Let's start making some lineups here. For those who play tiers contests, in Tier 1, you have Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa. Victor Hovland's probably going to be the chalkiest choice. He's probably the best choice. I'm actually going to take Colin Morikawa because I know I'm going to be chalky elsewhere in the contest, in the tiers contests, give me Colin Morikawa. I think he plays well this week, just due to the fact he finds fairways. Tier 2, Tony Finau, Aaron Wise, Billy Horschel, Taylor Montgomery, and Maverick McNeely. I love Maverick McNeely. If you're willing to be contrarian, I think that's a good play. I just have to take Tony Finau as number 1 player in my data model. I think this sets up well for him. Aaron Wise is also a good play. Billy Horschel's fine. Like, everybody in Tier 2 is good. I don't think you can make a wrong choice. I'm going to take Tony Finau because he's number 1 in my rankings. I think he's probably the favorite in my mind if it's not Victor Hovland. And that's another reason why I'm taking Morikawa in Tier 1. But if you're willing to be contrarian, take a long look at Maverick McNeely. I like McNeely this week. Tier 3, Tom Hoge, Seamus Power, Jason Day, Emiliano Grillo, and Brian Harman. Hoge, going to be very, very chalky. Grillo, going to be very, very chalky. I love both of those plays. Day is interesting. Harman, as much as I liked him or was considering him in Classic, I don't think I'm on him on tiers. So this is probably one of the tiers that I'm probably going to have to be chalky again. Like, Day's interesting. I'm out on Seamus Power, so I'm going to take Tom Hoge, hoping he's a little bit more unique than Grillo, but both of them are going to be pretty darn chalky. Tier 4, Brendan Todd, Thomas Dietrich, KH Lee, Alex Noren, Russell Henley, Keith Mitchell, and Andrew Putnam. Give me Andrew Putnam. Todd, if you want to go by previous course success. Henley for the analytics. But give me Andrew Putnam. I got a strong feeling on Andrew Putnam this week. Tier 5, Adam Hadwin, Matt Kuchar, Sebastian Munoz, Patrick Rogers, Nick Hardy, Davis Riley, Harris English. Give me Matt Kuchar, all of it based on prior course performance. He has just lit this course up in the past. Loves this event. So give me Matt Kuchar in Tier 5. And then finally, Tier 6, Aaron Rai, JT Poston, Francesco Molinari, Cameron Champ, Marty Laird, Kevin Yu, and Dylan Fratelli. I like Kevin Yu a lot. I think Cameron Champ is pretty darn sneaky in Tier 6. Poston generally plays easy courses well. But in Tier 6, I'm going to go with Kevin Yu. He'll probably be pretty darn chalky. Again, a lot of the reason why I took Morikawa and not Hovland in Tier 1. So there's a look at the tiers contest. Let's start building some classic lineups for these big GPPs. All right. If we are going to match your fellow contestants in what is more than likely being constructed, we're going to start with the second most popular player and the most popular player in Finau and Grillo. And your fellow contestants are bottoming out at Kevin Yu. So in 3 players, you're already matching 7.5% of your fellow contestants. Lots of ownership here. From here, it kind of depends. Do they want to go a higher 8 or not? Like Thomas Dietrich getting quite a bit of love. If not, they'll jump all the way down into the 7, like the mid 7s. So I'm going to give them Thomas Dietrich. Let's see, 74 is the average. You've got Joel Damon down here at 7,200. He's getting a lot of love. I think he's an all or nothing play. I have an outright wager on Joel Damon, so I'm not going to use him in DFS. But I think it's an interesting play for sure. Hayden Buckley is getting a whole lot of love, and then at 73, that is nobody there, so it'd be Joel Damon leaving 100 on the table. So there's a look at probably a bit of a balanced construction, matching 14.5% of the time, generally grabbing just the most popular players in that price area. If they don't go into the 7Ks, like they'll probably come up to let's see, somebody in the 7Ks. Really, it's Joel Damon. So they might, bring Kevin Yu up to a maybe an Aaron Rye, and perhaps they drop Dietrich down to, who's at 82, like Putnam's at 10%, getting a little bit of love. Won't be nearly as chalky, but if your fellow contestants aren't going to the 6Ks, this could be a roster construction that would be somewhat similar. That, of course, that could also be going, Aaron Wise or Morikawa. I just chose Finau because he's the most popular. Finau, Hoagie as well. If your fellow contestants are building balanced lineups, I'm going to start them with Billy Horschel. They absolutely don't have to. But I'm going to go like Billy Horschel. Actually, you know what? Let's go Tom Hoagie. Again, I try not to use the same names, but it is what it is. Tom Hoagie, Grillo, and Todd up top. In a balanced lineup, I don't really want them to go into the to the 6K, so we'll use Damon again. And then you have two 7600s. Take your pick: Justin Lauer, Aaron Rye, Lee Hodges, Hayden Buckley. Two of those four, Adam Long even getting some love at 7,400. I'll use Justin Lauer just to use a different name. But roughly around this 14% mark is what you are seeing in terms of these very popular players. It's going to be hard to do so doing a Stars and Scrubs traditionally, meaning if you want to go two 10Ks, you're probably going to have to come down to the 6s. Your best play is probably Kevin Yu, and that's not very popular. What I've been doing is trying to go a 10-9-9, really hammer the Stars and Scrubs approach. I've been going something to the effect of, say, a Colin Morikawa. I'm surprised he is this low ownership, but I'll go Taylor Montgomery and Tom Hoagie is fine. Like McNeely's fine. Like I could go Montgomery or McNeely here. Either one. Jason Day is interesting. I mentioned how I don't like too much in the 8Ks, but I'm just going to go down to Andrew Putnam and then really fill out my rest of my team in the low 7s with players that that I kind of like here, like JJ Spawn. I've mentioned I think this would be a good fit for JJ Spawn. I mentioned Cameron Champ, Grayson Sigg. I like both of them. 7,100 to round out this lineup. If you want to believe in Kevin Streelman, I'm not as high on Kevin Streelman, but there is a lineup with 8.5% projected own. You've got Taylor Montgomery, who is probably pretty clearly the best Korn Ferry Tour grad early on in their career. Morikawa, again, a bit of a hunch, but I think this is going to set up well for him. Champ has the ability to just overpower this course. It is short. Again, I'm the least confident in Kevin Streelman, so I could, change Kevin Streelman, go 7,100. Russell Knox should be okay. Martin Laird. Any of these. We'll say Russell Knox. Again, still just a bit over 8.5%. I like this construction. Again, move players around how you feel, and that's solo ownership. Like you can maneuver stuff around. Maybe you want to try to get a Russell Henley in there, or you like Hayden Buckley. You can drop down to a Hayden Buckley. Maybe you're not sold on Cameron Champ. This is 7,900. That's Sebastian Munoz, Patrick Rogers, who I don't mind. It's a little bit more chalky at 10.5%, but you have quite the maneuverability this week. However, the lineup that I have been really, really focused on trying to perfect. I'm so high on Tyler Duncan. I've been starting my team there and then trying to figure out where I want to go from there. There's Tyler Duncan. I've been going, as much as, say, a Maverick McNeely third. I can go. I'll use Aaron Wise. I know he's pretty popular, but I've been going something to the effect of Aaron Wise, Taylor Montgomery, or Aaron Wise, Tom Hoagie, Aaron Wise, Horschel, but something along these lines here, because McNeely doesn't seem to be getting a whole lot of love. Tyler Duncan is very unique and somebody I'm very, very high on. And then you can round it out however you wish. We'll move into a couple of low sevens. Grayson Sig, who I think is going to be just fine this week, gives you 71. That's that same Kevin Streelman, Russell Knox. If you don't mind using 2 6Ks, Kevin Yu, I think would be fine. Other players, Brandon Wu, I like at 6,900. Ben Griffin, if you aren't scared off by the poor back nine last week, could fit here. There's a lot of maneuverability this week. A lot of maneuverability. You are not stuck having to play the Tom Hoagies, the Emiliano Grios, the Finals. Just understand, no matter who you play in the 10Ks, they're going to be pretty popular. So make sure you choose your chalk wisely. But otherwise, put it in the comments. What kind of wagers do you have this week? What players did you focus on, or who did you fade? All that good stuff. I also pinned a comment on Monday evening, Halloween. I mentioned my favorite Halloween candy. Not my favorite candy, but it's my favorite Halloween candy. So hopefully you go back and check that out. Get a nice little community thread going there. What is everyone's favorite Halloween candy? Did you enjoy Halloween? Hopefully you stayed out of all the shenanigans, got all of your favorite candy and all that good stuff. P, thanks for jumping in chat via YouTube. I appreciate it, like you always do when you're able to catch the show. Thanks to everybody out there who has been tuning in the mornings on Twitch. It's been fun. I've been starting my gaming content and secondary stuff. I will be live tomorrow for Showdown content. So if you want to see that, 10:30 a.m. Eastern over on Twitch. And I'll have my betting cards out later tonight on Twitter once I finish my DFS lineups. But thank you to everyone who tunes in and watches and listens. I really appreciate the support. I love what I do. Wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it without you. Hopefully, I give you some angles, some players, some things to think about as you finalize your lineups. So good luck this weekend for all of the wagers you've made this weekend for the Mayakoba, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Mayakoba, for this weekend and every weekend. May all your bets be profitable.